Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to my video. All right, so we are going to be talking about an issue that I wouldn't say it's common, all right? And the part that's causing the issue, I wouldn't say that it's a common thing. And the diagnosis isn't common. But if you guys are trying to diagnose this issue and you guys have exhausted everything, then you might just want to look at this particular part to see the troubleshoot, to see whether it'll fix your problem, because you essentially have gone through every single step, virtually every single part, to figure out what the problem is, and none of these parts are causing the crank no start issue. So essentially, let me give you guys a breakdown of this situation. This is essentially a crank no start issue, but there is no spark, and essentially the fuel injectors are not firing off. Normally in these situations, you would think maybe it's the fuel pump relay, maybe it's the fuel pump, maybe there's a fuse for the fuel pump, the fuse for the fuel pump. And you probably use starter fluid to try to start it, and it may or may not start up. It may or may not start up, but you've essentially gone through diagnosing. It's not the fuel pump. It's not the fuel pump relay. You probably went through all the fuses and diagnosed that it's none of the fuses, because none of the fuses are blown. Then obviously, if you've gone and diagnosed all those things, you probably figured out that it's not the battery, because the battery are all charged up. It's not the crank shaft or the camshaft position sensor. And the weird thing is, in this particular situation, you get no codes whatsoever. All right. Now, the car will read the ECU. The ECU is the car's computer. Okay, you put an OBD2 in, it scans it all the way through. Yet, you get no codes whatsoever. You probably think to yourself, you know what? It scanned all the way through. The ECU reads, the OBD2 reads the ECU. It scans all the way through. You have no codes. And you've probably exhausted every single possible thing that you can think of. You could probably test out the security system to see maybe it's the security system that's keeping the car from running. It'll crank, but it won't start up. It won't run. It could be the key fob battery is dead, but you probably exhausted all those different avenues. And then other things that you could possibly think of is, well, maybe it's the ignition cylinder. Maybe if you have a push start, it's the push start. You're going through all the normal diagnosing and troubleshooting, and then you've gone further outside of normal troubleshooting. You're absolutely going through specific components that could cause this issue, but you're finding out that none of those things are causing that issue. Mass airflow sensor, the throttle position body, throttle position sensor, dirty throttle position, whatever it is that you guys went through down the list and could not figure out what the problem is after, and you guys would thoroughly in this situation would have to go down the whole entire list to check off the list. And if you guys exhausted all those avenues and find out that none of those things are actually causing this crank no start issue. If you guys are in this situation, and this is not normally a normal situation, you guys are in this situation, here's what you guys should look at. All right, there is a pretty high probability that it's probably the ECU that could be causing this issue, even though normally what happens is with ECU issues is you would either get a ton of codes, or the ECU OBD2 would not read the ECU all the way through. It will just hang trying to connect to the ECU and would. But like I said, the situation is not normally a normal situation. The ECU seems to work fine. It runs all the way through. Now, you guys could possibly check for ground wires that are rusted, ground wires that are disconnected because it rusted off. The frame or whatever, there's rust, corrosion, etc., etc. But there's a large chance that your ECU could be corrupted. If not corrupted, is broken, has issues, etc., etc. And in many of these cases, you could get another ECU, fairly inexpensive. Some of them you would need to reprogram. Well, these days, a lot of times you might need to, there's a high probability you need to reprogram the ECU by putting it in, but most of the time they're not expensive to get as far as swapping it out is concerned. But if you guys have this issue, it might be the ECU, and you might have to go that route, especially if you guys have figured out that it's not the fuel injectors causing it. It's not the fuel pump. It's not the fuel pump relay. It's not the crankshaft, camshaft. None of those things. All right. But in this case, you guys might be getting this no spark, the injectors aren't firing up. Situations like that could be a whole host of things. But if you guys are stuck in this situation, you guys had to take that last step to actually figure out what the problem is, and possibly save yourself from going to the dealership, or save yourself from spending money on more diagnosis, spending money on putting parts in that aren't broken, putting more time into re-diagnosing everything. Probably what you guys should do in this situation is probably the simplest route is probably to check if the ECU, the connector to the ECU have any issues. If it doesn't have any issues, you might want to just consider swapping out the ECU. It might just fix your problem with this kind of issue, which is in many cases very rare. However, if you guys have any of your own personal experiences with this, definitely leave a comment in the comments section. It might help somebody else out. It might help the whole troubleshooting process with your situation, everybody else's situation. Leave a comment either way. Subscribe, give me a thumbs up, all that good stuff. Appreciate you guys. All right, take care.